And when you get sucked into that black hole of lesson planning, it's what's going to pull you out. It's what's going to ground you and be like, okay, what are we trying to do here again? Hello, hello, all those beautiful faces. How we doing? How we doing? Stephanie checking in with another episode of Class Disruption. And this week, we're talking about unit planning. But before we get into it, I need you to do all that good YouTube stuff. Smash that like button. If you're new here, I love that beautiful face. Welcome. Hit that subscribe button and that bell so you can get notified every time I drop a video, which I'm aiming for once a week. I've been keeping up with it even as the school year started. If you have any topics that you want me to cover, if you have any people you want me to speak with, if you want to come have a conversation with me, let me know in those comments down below or send me a message on my social media. You can find me on Instagram at Class Disruption. I got that one right down here in the corner. Or you can find me on Twitter, also at Class Disruption. It's just spelled a little differently. It's right here. It's also linked all in that description down below. A bunch of other good links like to my classroom Instagram if you want to see what I'm like in action in my classroom. I also have a way that you can donate to my classroom via Cash App or PayPal. All that good stuff in that description down below. Check it out, support, drop a comment, let us know where you're checking in from, and let's go ahead and get on into this video. Because like I said, this is all about unit planning. This is the second video of a 3-video series. If you did not catch the first video, I suggest that you go and watch that one before you get into this one, because that's all about curriculum mapping. And really, before you can come up with a really good unit plan, you have to have that curriculum map. You have to know where you're trying to get your kids by the end of the year. So definitely go check that out. And then next week, I will be bringing it down to that single lesson plan. So this week though, we're focusing on unit planning. So let's go get into unit planning. And just like every other part of this process, you need to think about that one thing. What is that one thing in this case that you want the students to know after or by the end of this unit? And additionally, how will you know that they know that? Is it going to be like that traditional kind of test kind of thing? Or are you going to have them do some type of project or presentation, which is more and more as I'm teaching my preferred method of doing it. Of course, in New York State, I do still have the Regents, which is our big state exams to contend with. So that's definitely something I take into consideration. And it's something I want my kids to be able to pass by the end of the year. But that's not how I'm framing my goals. I frame it on what I want them to know. And I know if they know that, then they can smash that state exam out of the test without me having to teach to the test. So as we're moving from curriculum mapping, which is pretty broad, pretty general, right? By the end of the year, I want my students to be able to, in my case, think like historians, or I want my kids to think like mathematicians. And of course, that might be tied to solving a certain type of problem, or writing a certain essay, or tied to certain state tests that you might have to take. But when we bring that down to the unit level, it becomes much more specific and much more tied to a specific type of content. Again, I'm a social studies teacher, so that's always what's at the tip of my tongue. And my first unit of study, I do just getting to know my kids, getting some basic skills down, but my real first content unit is the Enlightenment. So by the end of that Enlightenment unit, they need to be able to explain what the Enlightenment is and be able to make a certain type of analysis or argument based on that. Whereas at the end of the year, that's just going to be one little aspect of something much larger that they're able to do. And it's not, at the end of the year, I'm not tying it to one specific piece of content. That is one thing in the tool shed that they should be able to pull out and apply to that end of the year thing. So like I said, at the unit level, it needs to be much more specific. What is it that you want those kids to know at the end of the unit, and how will you know that? I'm going to say it over and over again because it is the most important thing. And when you get sucked into that black hole of lesson planning, it's what's going to pull you out. It's what's going to ground you and be like, okay, what are we trying to do here again? So wait, what are we trying to do here again? we need to refer to our curriculum map. And that's why I said, if you have not watched the video on a curriculum map, if you don't have a curriculum map, that is something you need to stop right now. Go watch that video, check out your curriculum map so that you can create a very, very intentional unit of study that is doing what it's supposed to do, right? Being that step, that building block on your way to that ultimate goal. But if you don't know what that goal is, if you don't know where you're trying to, bring your class, get your students, then the unit of study might just be a hodgepodge of, oh, we need to do some of this and some of that, but it doesn't have that cohesiveness, that way that it spirals back around and makes those connections that teach a magic that you're really looking for. So let's check out my curriculum map that I was referring to last time and see how that maps onto my unit. So here is my curriculum map in all of its glory. Again, down the side here, I have the different marking periods at my school. We have 8. And then across the top, I have all those different elements that I want to make sure I'm including some aspect of within each unit. And so for this, I'm going to do the first unit that I've drawn out for this year, my introduction unit, which is all about getting to know my students, about tech, public speaking. And so I go in here, I remind myself of what I'm trying to do, if I'm working with any guests, if I have any resources that I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely need to make sure I include this. And then I go over to my unit, my brainstorming kind of pre-plan before I really map it out into my weekly thing that I give out to the students. My, what do they call those? Not a rubric, it's a syllabus, my weekly syllabus for my students. So I remind myself of that, and then this is a template that I've made myself, super simple, and again, it reinforces those two things. What do I want the students to learn or understand from this unit, and how will they be able to demonstrate that knowledge? How will I know that they know it? And so I take those things basically from along the top, and I list some of them out in here. So one of them is that, right, I want them to be able to do, where is it? Okay, I want them to be able to have this technology, these different application skills that they're able to use. I want them to have some skills of the historian. I want them enduring issues, which is a New York State kind of thing, like themes throughout history. We need to re-go over that concept. So those are the major things. And I just remind myself, I want to get to know my students. I want to get them comfortable interacting, especially now I put in parentheses, because this is always my aim, but specifically in an online environment. I need to introduce them to those major tech platforms and skills that we're going to be using. Specifically, I've identified Flipgrid, Pear Deck, and Google Drive. And then that big kind of like content thing you can say, or the New York State standards that I need to include, are the reviewing of enduring issues. I want them to be able to identify the different ones. I want them to be able to define them. And I want them to be able to talk about them, specifically in terms of their own life. Again, I like to start pretty off content, getting my kids thinking about their own life, talking about their own life, and then it makes it much easier to take those skills and that line of thinking and put them in content once they're confident with that. And therefore, those things are going to, how am I going to know that they have these basic skills? Well, they're going to give me that speech, right, which gets them comfortable interacting on that online environment. It's going to have them comfortable talking about their own issues in their own life, which relate to the enduring issues, right, their own experiences, and they're going to ultimately turn this thing in using Flipgrid. And so, boom, that's what we have that right there. So you can see how these two map, and it just gives me this really clear vision for exactly what I want my students to learn and why I want them to learn it. So now I need to figure out, okay, what's my time frame? How are these each going to actually map onto the calendar? So what do? I just set up a basic, here's the dates that we're in class, and here's the activity or the objective, and it's not nice and it's not super fancy. Again, this is just a brainstorm. I'm just kind of getting loosely out there the things that in my mind I see us doing. And two, like I said in that first video, it's very visual for me, right? And sometimes I have my pad and my paper here because the typing, it just doesn't cut it for me. I need to get it on paper and then I can really visualize it. So make sure that you're seeing it, not just doing it in words and step by step, but actually seeing how it's happening. And so then the first thing before I even actually fill in any activities though, is I go through and I say, okay, these are the dates, but what dates am I in school? And so on Wednesdays, we have this thing called weekly wellness, so there's no classes on that day, but it is a day that students are expected to do assignments. So I can definitely give like a 2-day asynchronous assignment or something that might take them a little bit longer than on another night. So it's something I want to consider my planning. And then just the different days off during the week that we aren't in school. So Yom Kippur, Columbus Day, again, I try to at least reference them or include them slightly in what we're doing in school. So it doesn't always work out, but I like to at least know they're there and that, okay, this is a Monday or this is whatever day, but we're not actually going to be in school. And then, of course, the thing that I know is where I'm trying to get these kids. By the last day of the marking period, we're going to have our presentation day and they're going to give their speech. So I just start with that as a basic kind of skeleton. And then I go in and I start actually filling it in. Again, it's super loose here. These aren't very nicely laid out necessarily like objectives. I'm just getting my thoughts out there and I work around with this. I move things around, and then even from this version over to my more formatted version, week to week, sometimes you don't always get everything you wanted to. Sometimes you need to reteach things. So I really leave myself a little bit of room to play with things here. And you don't have to be totally 100% set, even if you have your unit planned. And that's actually really what I like about this online part is I can go in, it's not like my syllabus is printed. I can go in, and if I need to slightly change something or move something from one day to another, I can just do that, and it's automatically reflected on the students' copies. Of course, I let them know of those changes, and it's not just like sneakily changing it under them. So I go from something like this, and then I move over and I started formatting it, seeing how I wanted it laid out, especially because I'm not using my old syllabus style. This is now online learning. So I decided on synchronous and asynchronous columns, and I was playing with the material column, but I decided it was too much. I just want to keep it simple, elegant, sleek. So we just have the synchronous and the asynchronous. I was playing with some bullet points, different types of formatting, but you can see, again, this is just sort of my draft. I didn't put too much into this. And then you'll see that final version, how I really step it up and make it much more visually appealing. But again, you really just have to lay it out and make sure that you're putting that cohesion in there. And again, I like to start with that last thing. There's some things I knew I wanted to do in the beginning, right? There's some things I know, like first day has got to be like an introduction day. So, and I know in the first week I need to introduce enduring issues and Jamboard, but then I really skipped down to the end because I knew, and it might be easier to look at it in this view right here. In the end, I knew I had presentation day. And for this, I'm working with Jamal, and he has a 5-lesson public speaking series. And so I knew I had to build those 5 lessons in, and they would be working backwards. So session 5 is presentation day for him. So I knew I'd be doing session 4 here, and then probably session 3 around here. I might need like a day or 2 in here. So session 2, and then like session 1. And again, this, you'll see, this isn't actually how it maps exactly over into the final version of it, but this is just something I start playing with because I'm like, okay, so we're gonna build up to the presentations, and now what else do I need them to know before we actually get there? I started writing the one that I didn't. I had more stuff up here, right? I did my first week, and then I'm like, okay, from that first week to get us into the actual writing, okay, what's my next lessons going to be? Okay, well, I need to introduce them to Flipgrid, so we're gonna intro Flipgrid. They're gonna do a 1-minute intro of self video. I know that I definitely want to do something with the presidential election that's going on, or using those speeches and analyzing them. So we can throw that in there. So then I start going into this and I start figuring out, okay, if this is the thing that I want to accomplish here, what does that look like in the synchronous? Like, what am I doing live with the kids? And then what are they going to be doing at home? Or I guess everything's at home. What are they going to be doing by themselves, asynchronously, right? Without me. And I just start getting in there and really laying it out. And it all comes together. And like I said, you can see this is still pretty loose. Like this week, I'm going to have to go in and take this final week And what I do is I turn them into something that looks like this. So you can see I really made it much more visually appealing. I put in information about my class, how to get my calendar, social media, and it's interactive. That's what I really like about this online stuff too, is like every day I can switch it out. Boom, there's our meeting link. I can link the slides. I can link the actual assignments here. Of course, they're all posted in our Google Classroom, but sometimes it just makes it more accessible when you're really trying to go through things and be like, oh wait, what was that? So you can see that's 1 week. Here's another week. So I got the due dates in there. Here's the week that I just finished up. And then next week I need to go in and make the next week one. So let's just take for an example though, this is this last week, and see what it looks like from when I was planning it out to what it changed into. So this is what I was looking like when I was planning it out, and then this is what so Monday we were supposed to do oral history mini lesson, oral history project, small group discussion, practice speaking about your topic, and do this Michelle Obama and response. And let's see what I actually did. We did public speaking. Okay, we reviewed some of what they did on their own, and then they did small group discussions on their topic proposal. So that is more or less, I didn't actually end up doing this oral history mini lesson, but we did most of this, and the Michelle Obama thing was actually included in that activity as well. And then I didn't end up giving them any new assignments on this. I said, hey, start your first draft if you can, but this is really a day that you should be resubmitting any new or missed assignments or low scores that you want me to regrade. And then let's look at Tuesday. Tuesday, we had self and class assessment, brainstorm on how to connect with the audience, and review oral history project. So what had I originally planned? Originally, I had actually planned that they were going to be doing this connecting with the audience. Is that what we did? Oh yeah, so you can see that's what they did. For homework, they did that. And then it wasn't really necessarily so super clear what I was going to be doing in class, but I got it figured out. And again, that's really at the beginning of the week, I go back through and I decide, I say, okay, we definitely need to do this. Okay, this is the activity that makes sense. We never got to that. Let's just stick with what we're doing. So you can see it really is this fluid process. But because I have a plan, that very broad general plan where I have the big picture of where I'm going, and then I have brought that down and I have a plan of where I want to go, but I leave myself that room to make changes, to make adjustments when I'm in the process of doing it. Because there's nothing more frustrating as a teacher than being like, oh, this isn't what I planned. Well, if your plan has some space in it for some wiggle room, then it actually makes, when you're pulling out those teacher moves, it makes you feel good about those moves and not like, oh, well, I gotta rely on this other thing. But that's the basics of how I go from my curriculum map into my unit plan. Of course, there's things that are specific to online learning in there. There's things that are specific to my subject, but that general process where you're laying out your dates, laying out, okay, what's that basic thing that I want to cover? You start from the end, and then you kind of go back and forth and fill in, okay, I need to do these things to intro in the beginning. This is where I want to be. So, and then I fill in that middle part kind of at the end to bridge myself from that introductory material into those higher order level thinking skills where you get to by the end of the unit. And then moving from this general brainstorm, my syllabus is definitely formatted in a way that is not only specific to the online circumstances that we find ourselves into, but into some things that are specific to my school and my style. I would imagine there are many different ways that you could ultimately make that syllabus, whatever suits you best, but that general process again is there where you have your dates, you're leaving yourself some room, you're going from being a little bit less defined to really defining things out. This is what we're doing in class versus this is what students will be doing on their own. So I hope you can take those general processes and apply them specifically to your teaching practice, your grade level, the things that you need to do for your school and your state. As always, if you have any questions, let me know in those comments down below. I will definitely be sure to get back to you. Likewise, if you have any suggestions, if you want to share how you do your unit plan, definitely want to know. I'm always looking for ways, just new perspectives, ways to switch up my practice, improve my practice, and just keeping an open mind, right? There's no one way to do this, but it's all about having that plan so that you can have something to fall back onto when you get lost into the, craziness that teaching often is from moment to moment, right? Kids having problems, kids doing amazing things. You got emails coming in, you got parents, you got principals, you got your own life. Make life a little bit easier for yourself. Have a good plan to fall back onto. And of course, like this video. If you're new here, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that I've given you some value, that you will press that subscribe button. Plus, I love that beautiful face. So hit that bell so you can get notified every time my beautiful face is going to, bless this. Nah, we just having a little fun with it though. Enjoy your long weekend. We got Monday off. Use that time to rest, recover, catch up on a little work, because you know how it is. And of course, stay foolish, y'all.